Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your video lecture on how to use a comma. This particular lesson is going to help you understand a little bit more about when to know when to use a comma, especially in regards to the SAT language and writing test. So let's get started. According to Princeton Review, there are 4 rules for using commas. This is going to be the ideas that you want to use for the language and writing test. So if the sentence, if the clause, if the passage you're looking at for the writing and language test does not include one of these 4 ideas, then you probably, most likely, do not need a comma. So you know you can either eliminate it or you can move on and choose something better. Okay, so first we have stop punctuation with one of the fanboys, which is an acronym we'll see in just a moment. Go punctuation in a list of 3 or more, and before and after unnecessary information. So now let's take a look at each one of these more specifically to help us out. Stop and go punctuation. So when we stop, that it means there is an idea connected to another idea, but we need to put a stop in between them using a fanboy. So that means a phrase that starts with for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. If you look at the sentence I've written, for example, rain is needed for farm crops in America's heartland. So if you notice, there's a phrase at the beginning of the sentence that uses the word for. That's a key to me that, okay, it's one of my fanboys. It's connected to another thought, so I need to put a comma. So for example, comma. Rain is needed for farm crops in America's heartland. You can also use commas when it's a go punctuation, which means that it's not separating a thought but connecting them together. If something isn't done now, comma, the U.S. agricultural system could be at risk. On a farm, comma, there is much work to be done in order to succeed. So those first parts are incomplete thoughts. They're not complete sentences, so we're connecting them to a complete sentence. In order to do so, I use a comma. If something isn't done now, comma. On a farm, comma. Or if you have 2 complete thoughts, meaning it has a subject and a predicate, and we need to connect them together, you need to use a comma. Annual precipitation is measured by scientists, comma, and they use it to predict potential drought conditions. I have 2 thoughts here. Annual precipitation measured by scientists, use it to predict drought conditions. Those are 2 complete thoughts, and I'm connecting them together in one sentence, so I need to use a comma as well as a conjunction, the word and. Farmers need help with their crops, but potential employees are dwindling in number. Again, 2 separate thoughts, 2 separate ideas. Farmers need help, employees are dwindling. So I have 2 separate ideas there, so I connect them together using a comma and a conjunction. In a list of 3 or more. So when you have a list of objects, a list of actions, or a list of ideas, and there's 3 of them or more, you need to put commas. And you'll notice, like in the sentences, the farmer must take care of his animals, his tools, and his crops each day. The word before and needs to include a comma. There is debate on whether this is true or not, but as far as the SAT test is concerned, yes, you must put a comma before and when there is more than 3. If there's only 2, you don't need a comma, but 3 or more, you must put a comma in your series. And it can be a list of objects, it can be a list of actions, wakes up before dawn, works all day, prepare to work again the next day, or a list of ideas. If there's enough feed, if he has enough time, what the weather will be like. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a particular set of words, but it has to be congruent. So if you have a list of objects, it can only be objects. If you have a list of actions, it can only be actions. If it's a list of ideas, it can only be ideas. You can't mix an object with an action with an idea. That would just be 3 separate sentences. So if you're going to have a series, the series has to match in appearance, in meaning-ish. The last type of questions you might have on the writing and language section of the SAT in regards to commas has to do with using it before and after pieces of information that are unnecessary. The farmer, along with his farmhands, must work endlessly to make sure he yields enough crop. The phrase along with his farmhands, it is not necessary in this sentence. If I took it out, the farmer must work endlessly to make sure he yields enough crop, the sentence still makes complete sense. So because of that, it's called what's called an appositive. It's just information we add in, even though it doesn't have anything necessary to the sentence. But in order to put it in there, I have to separate it with commas. A comma before it, the farmer, comma, along with his farmhands, and a comma after it, farmhands, comma, and then the rest of the sentence. And this can be put in different parts of the sentence. There are several risks, comma, such as injury and weather, comma, that can prevent the farm from having a successful yield. The U.S. government has passed many pieces of legislation, comma, like the Federal Farm Loan Act of 1916, comma, to help farmers. So you notice that in all of these sentences, that little piece of information is not necessary. It just illustrates a point or expands on that point, but it has to be separated by a comma. So those are the 4 ways we need to make sure we know how to use commas. Stop punctuation, go punctuation, series of 3 or more, and when there's before and after unnecessary information. You're going to use this and apply it to the practice questions you're going to do today. Good luck!